Ever since getting diagnosed with autism in my early 20s, I've really started to question some of my life choices, and I'm mainly talking about my career path. I went to college years ago, thinking that I would graduate and get a corporate job and I would climb that corporate ladder. I would work my way up, I would make more money, I would have this respectable job title and this successful career. And ever since then, ever since being diagnosed with autism, I really questioned recently if that's in fact what I want to do with my life, or if I was just doing what I thought I should do. I feel like a corporate job and, doing that whole career path, it's kind of seen similarly as like going to college, right? Like going to college and working a corporate job, that's like the mainstream thing. Like that's the thing that like most people do, that, and it's like you feel like you should do those things, like, going to college and getting a corporate job. They are both kind of seen as like the safe path, right? Like, having a college degree will get you a lot of job opportunities and open up a lot of opportunities for you. And, working a corporate job gives you the stability of things like benefits, health benefits, vacation time, a stable paycheck, a 401k. Some of us take the path of going to college or going into a corporate job. We do that because we feel like that's what we should do. And we don't really question whether or not it's really the right choice for us. And that was the case with me. I always knew for years that I was going to go to college and that I wanted to work a job where I could make good money. And so I settled on the path of accounting. So I went to school, I graduated a semester early. So I went to school for 3.5 years. I got a job in accounting as soon as I graduated. I worked at that job for about 6 months. And then I got fired from that job. And I remember I really, really struggled in that job a lot. I had a hard time like catching on. I was being trained, and no matter how many times they trained me on something, I just wasn't getting it. It just wasn't sinking in my brain. I figured that it was probably that, I needed to have a little bit of a different approach to training because I'm autistic and I have some learning challenges. But after I got fired from that job, I went on to another corporate job. And at that job, I got bullied. And because of the bullying, I eventually left the job and I went on to another job that I liked a lot. But then I moved across the country, so I had to take another job. And when I took another job, it was a fully in-office position that was in accounting once again. And I found that I didn't enjoy that job. I didn't enjoy, I didn't enjoy the accounting position. And I didn't last very long in it, only 3 months. And now I have the current remote job that I have. But especially ever since working in 2 accounting jobs and having both of those jobs not work out, I've questioned that, like, was accounting a good fit for me, or was that something that I just picked because, it's a respectable job title. It has the stability. It would be a job that my parents would be proud of me for doing. And I realized that, I don't think I ever really wanted to be an accountant. I think I just did what I thought I should do. As a matter of fact, I don't even think I want to work a corporate job for the rest of my life. For the last 5 years, ever since I've been working full time, I have noticed a pattern in burnout. I've noticed myself get more and more deep into burnout. I've noticed, I have days where burnout is worse, and then I have days where things are a little bit better and I can actually get up and function and do things. But overall, I've just noticed a decline. I don't think I can remember the last time I have not felt genuinely burned out and exhausted. And that is 100% correlated to working a corporate job. I wasn't feeling this way before I graduated college, at least to the extent that I am right now. And it had me thinking, what are some things in a corporate job that just don't work for me? And I want to go through those things, and I want to talk about why I want to leave the corporate world and move on to eventually being self-employed. I think the biggest thing for me is the schedule. Most corporate jobs function on the same schedule. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, or something along those lines. And that's a schedule that just doesn't work for every person. And that's just how these jobs are. They are structured in a way that doesn't account for people who are neurodivergent, who may not work best with that structure. I find that working 5 days in a row only to get 2 days off of work is a little bit overwhelming. Like, I feel like I would do better if I had more frequent days off and I worked in shorter stints, I guess. Like, if I worked maybe 1 or 2 days, if I had 2 days in a row that I worked and I got things done, and then I took a day off, and then I worked 2 days following the day off. I feel like that would be a better schedule for me, because it's less overwhelming for my brain to think, okay, I just got to work for 2 days, and then I can have a little bit of a break. I can, rest a little bit. Whereas like working a corporate job, I'm like, I have to get through 5 days of work, and then I just get 2 days of rest, and then I have to wait another 5 days. Like, I've learned that I do better when, things are like tasks, overwhelming tasks are broken down. And that includes like a work schedule, only having to work a little bit at a time. And then same thing with like a day-to-day schedule. Like, instead of an 8 to 5, having, maybe working 1 or 2 hours at a time, and then taking a break for an hour, and then, repeating that. The other thing that, like, why that schedule doesn't work for a lot of autistic people is that autistic people deal with uneven productivity, or a lot of neurodivergent people in general. And so, like, we might have a day where we get a lot of work done. We are super productive. We get like a full day's work done in 4 hours. And then it's like the next day, you are struggling to do even the most basic tasks. And, one of the reasons why I want to be self-employed is so that I can have that control of, structuring my work week, instead of a typical corporate job that requires consistent performance each day. Like, I can kind of plan out my week knowing how I work. Like, let's say Monday, I'm going to be doing a lot of like very, mentally draining tasks. I will know that, like, okay, I probably shouldn't expect that Tuesday is going to be a very productive day. So maybe Tuesday, either I take a rest day, I take a day off, or I work maybe only half a day, or, maybe I just focus on tasks that take a little bit less brain power. So that's another reason why. It's just the schedule. The schedule doesn't work for people whose brains work differently. Another big thing is just work environment. I talk a lot about how, particularly for me, working in an office environment is a bit overwhelming. And like, there's a lot of sensory input, and also there's the social expectations. Like, it's like in so many corporate jobs, there is like an unspoken rule that you have to, you have to be social. You have to socialize with everybody. You have to, participate in team lunches, and it's like you're having to navigate unspoken rules and things that don't come naturally to autistic people, on top of the cognitive load that you're already dealing with just doing your job duties. I always say that I feel like working in an office environment is like working 2 jobs, except you don't get paid for one of the jobs. One of the jobs you are working, it's you're working the actual job, and then you're working a job where, you are, it's the social aspect. You're navigating the social rules. You're doing all the, faking all the small talk. You're, trying to navigate all these other things. And, I find that an office environment doesn't work for me also with this, because of the sensory issues. You're hearing all these noises, all of these, smells and things going on around you that can be a little bit of a distraction if you're neurodivergent and you can't just filter out noises and act like they're not happening. So that is another reason. Being able to work for myself, I have control of where I work. So nobody's going to tell me that I got to go work in an office. The job I currently have is remote. And I'm so grateful for that. But like, my fear is also like, what if something happens to my remote job? Like, what if I get laid off or fired from that job at some point? And then I'm in this position where I have to go find another job. And the sad thing is that, remote work is becoming more and more hard to come by nowadays, because everybody is, all these offices, all these corporate jobs are forcing people to work back, go back to working in the office for whatever reason. They're forcing everybody back into the office. And so, because of that, I feel like there's less remote opportunities available. And so then like, I worry about being in this situation where I'm like, okay, do I not be able to afford my rent, or do I suck it up and go work in an environment that is going to mentally destroy me? Because that's what an office environment does. When you're having to sit there and deal with all that sensory input, deal with the cognitive load of socializing and navigating all of these unspoken rules, that does take a lot out of you. It's not me being, over dramatic and, being lazy. And, I wouldn't have a problem with an office environment, honestly, if people would just be respectful of some individuals that would rather just come into work and keep their head down and not necessarily be chatty with everyone. But no, so many workplaces, it's like they have a problem with you if you're not being talkative, if you're not making friends with everyone. So, I think just having the ability to work from home and, knowing that when I'm self-employed, no one's going to be able to take that away from me, that would be super ideal, because then I could, working from home, I can control my environment. I don't have to deal with, distractions around me, noises and things that may be distracting. I can set my work environment up in a way that allows me to be able to be as productive as I can be. Another thing I want to talk about of why I want to leave the corporate world is bullying. Because I found out the hard way that bullying doesn't end in high school. It continues your entire life. It really sucks, because the worst bullying that I've ever experienced didn't happen to me at school. It happened to me at a corporate job by a woman old enough to be my mom. And unfortunately, this is especially common for people who are autistic, because when you're autistic, you are different. You stand out. You also don't follow the unspoken rules. You don't do things in the way that neurotypicals expect. You question things. And a lot of corporate jobs don't like that. For instance, things like social hierarchy in the workplace. They expect you to basically like bow down to like upper management and like treat upper management like they are a god, whereas a lot of autistic people may view everybody in the workplace like at the same level. Someone could be the CEO, but that person may view the CEO as no more important than, the entry-level employees. And corporate jobs don't like that. They view that as disrespectful. They view that as you are questioning authority. And that's not the case at all. It's just, for us, things like social hierarchy don't make a lot of sense. So that can also be something that, that like kind of puts you at risk for bullying, is like when you're not doing things, when you're not playing the game because it doesn't make sense to you. But yeah, bullying happens a lot, unfortunately. I experienced bullying a few years ago, and it really sucks to experience that, especially when like the person bullying you is your manager and they kind of have control over your job. Like I worked at that job a few years ago when I was getting bullied, and I was constantly worried about getting fired, because I knew that the person bullying me had the power to do that. The other thing is like she gave me bad reviews on my performance evaluation. So she didn't give me like completely terrible reviews, but she gave me like a 2 out of 5 star rating. So that resulted in me getting little tiny pay raise. Like I was getting paid hourly. I got like a 26-cent pay raise, which is nothing. But like things like that, just like knowing that like someone else can kind of stunt your growth in the workplace too, just because they don't like you. So that's another thing. It's just experiencing bullying and people treating me badly because of the fact that my brain works differently. What I want to talk about is workplace accommodations. In a lot of corporate jobs, so many of these places do not want to give you accommodations. They're technically supposed to, yes, there's the ADA. They legally are supposed to give you accommodations. They legally can't fire you if you need accommodations, but you'd be surprised at how these workplaces find a way to, discriminate and get away with it. It happens so many times. I hear so many stories. People, like, if you disclose that you have a disability and you ask for accommodations, oftentimes it puts a target on your back. You are pushed out of the workplace. Like I get so many comments on TikTok videos of people sharing their stories of, I told my employer that I had a disability. I asked for accommodations, and rather than them giving me accommodations, a few days later, I was put on a performance improvement plan for things that were never a problem before. And that was their way of trying to fire the person for a legitimate reason so that they didn't have to give them workplace accommodations. And I think that's messed up. I don't like the fact that, I have to be kind of, at any kind of job where I have to like keep the fact that I have a disability like on the down low. I can't share that information. Like here, on social media, I like to be open and I like to share, about my disability, and I like to, share that so people feel less alone, and also to educate other people. I would love to be able to share with my workplace that I have a disability and educate people and tell them that like, hey, I think that having people on the team whose brains work differently is a beautiful thing. I think that having someone like me can be very valuable. I would love to be able to do that, but I know that that would be very, very risky. So, I'm forced to kind of like keep quiet about that. I would love to have a job where I can be myself and actually express myself and not worry about, someone trying to fire me or push me out because of the fact that I don't fit in. So, being able to work for myself would allow me to work in a way where I feel safe. So I just don't want to have to deal with, this. I have to keep quiet about my disability, and same with the accommodations. I can set myself up with whatever accommodations I need to be successful. I don't have to worry about whether an employer is going to be willing to provide me with accommodations, or are they going to view me as a burden and they're going to get rid of me. I've learned that working a corporate job is just not the right fit for me, and that's okay. While that might be a path that many people choose to take, and that's absolutely a valid path if that is something that you're interested in and you feel that suits you the best, I've just learned that corporate jobs are not for me, and it's not where I want to be for the rest of my life. And I'm hoping that I can work towards being self-employed and never having to clock into a corporate job ever again. I'm hoping to slowly get myself there. I know the biggest challenge that I experience is the fact that I do have to work full time, until social media can generate enough income to where I can quit. And that's not going to be for a while. So I have to continue to work my full-time job so that I can continue to afford to live. But then in order for me to become self-employed, I have to spend time outside of work, working on being self-employed, making videos, making content. Another thing I'm really hoping to do is also publish a book. So I've actually started writing chapters of things that I would love to put in my future book. So I'm trying to slowly do things to not really overwhelm me. I'm trying to post one or two, get back into posting 1 or 2 YouTube videos a week, posting TikToks, and just writing and, just kind of taking it slow. Like, I don't want to overwhelm myself with all the things that I need to do. Like, right now I'm just like, let's just continue to build an audience online, get the book written. Once the book is written, then we'll figure out how we're supposed to publish a book, because I have absolutely no idea how to do that. But I hope that one day I will be leaving the corporate world for good, never coming back. And, I hope that one day I can be waking up every morning to do something that I'm genuinely passionate about, which is content creation and sharing my story as a late diagnosed autistic person. And I hope you will help me get there by subscribing to my channel, sharing my posts with anyone, commenting, and also giving me a follow on TikTok. I hope to be active on some other social media platforms too, but also I know I shouldn't be overwhelming myself. But I appreciate you for being here, and hopefully one day this will be my full-time job. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.